more bad news with regards to Cork Airport and indeed Shannon, staff within Aer Lingus. And in the past I have spoken from time to time to one of the Aer Lingus pilots, Kieran O'Regan, and he joins me by phone again this morning just to see if we can just wade through exactly what's happening. Kieran, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
So what do we know? We know about the huge losses to Ryanair, $750,000 in a calendar year, and closing down Cork for the foreseeable future. Now we know of nearly $500,000, perhaps and counting, losses for Aer Lingus up to maybe March or April of this year. Devastating. On top of that now, job layoffs of your colleagues and Aer Lingus shuttering Cork until at least November. Is that it?
That's correct, yeah. And that's if everything goes to plan.
And if it doesn't go to plan?
Well, if it doesn't go to plan, if this runway work overruns, which it may do. I mean, the weather alone may cause it to overrun by weeks or maybe months. We will then miss Christmas, so there's lost revenue, over the Christmas period, and the airline may not decide to even have the base up running till maybe April next year, kind of going into Easter time next year.
Okay. So what kind of redundancies are we looking at now?
Well, the numbers haven't been officially announced yet. Our colleagues in Shannon will be offered redundancy or a base transfer to Dublin. For Cork, there's talks of maybe 10 or 12 cabin crew may be affected in terms of there might be a voluntary package announced for those, and the ground staff don't really know yet as to what exactly is going to happen.
But the numbers for Cork are 138 crew members and 60 ground staff. They will temporarily be laid off. Does that mean when they're laid off, they get no money?
Correct. They get no money, and the funny thing about it is they'll be laid off without pay. There's no real social welfare plan or idea of what people are entitled to. For example, if you're a cabin crew member in Cork, you're married, your husband is still working, you will be means tested. So essentially your income could be completely wiped out for at least 3 months. As I said, it may be for longer. We've seen that with Shannon, that initially the employees in Shannon were told it was for 3 months, and now we see what has happened there. There is a concern that may happen in Cork as well. There's no scheme or payment scheme available for people being left off for 3 months.
But would not even pop?
No, because the way it's announced is these layoffs are coordinated with the runway closure, not because of COVID, but essentially. But
we used to call that casual staff in the past. They're not casual staff.
No, they're permanent staff. They're permanently employed by Aer Lingus and based out of Cork Airport. And they're now being laid off for 3 months because of the runway closure.
Does that include your good self?
Our situation is slightly different. We won't be flying out of Cork, but the decision we were told yesterday, and it may change, is that pilots in Cork will be kept current. So we have to fly to be kept current. If we're not kept current, it takes quite a considerable amount of time and money to get us back to a stage where we have to fly again.
Yeah, so where you can fly with 24 hours notice kind of thing. Where are you flying? Are you flying at the moment?
I flew last Friday out of Cork to London and back, and that was my first flight this year.
And is it okay to ask you who was on board or what was on board that flight?
Yeah, well, it was about 80 odd passengers leaving Cork to go to Heathrow, and about 70 odd came back. You don't know why they're travelling, or whether they're going on holidays or business, or whether they're essential? It's probably a mixture of everything. It's probably essential travel, business travel, and maybe people visiting family.
Yeah, but there's only a trickle of flights out of Cork, isn't there?
Yeah. There's very little. Basically what we would be doing this time of year, what we're doing a week, we would do before 11 o'clock in the morning. If you put that into perspective.
I heard this morning the International Air Transport Association, perhaps you can tell us who they are. They are going to be telling an Oireachtas committee today that quarantine measures need to be lifted. lifted, that to me is code for saying travel restrictions should be abandoned.
Yeah, well, the government are not going to go from the very, very tight restrictions. Now, in terms of restrictions, we have the tightest restrictions in the EU, travel-wise, and the government will not. There's not a hope. It doesn't matter who's telling them what. They're not going to go from 100% to zero. This will be a gradual unleashing of restrictions as time goes by. The government are being advised by ourselves, by Ryanair, members in Aer Lingus, IBEC. There's a steering committee that basically presented an aviation recovery plan to the Minister Ryan, the Minister for Transport, back in March, the 5th of March. That has been ignored. There's a report about antigen testing that has been commissioned by the Minister for Health. That has been ignored. There is an open border between the UK and Ireland, and mandatory hotel quarantining is kind of pointless because of that. That's also been ignored. And the government don't have a plan. The Cabinet met yesterday and decided that aviation wasn't important enough to talk about. So we're being ignored again. And we're seeing the consequences of all this. We saw it yesterday, and we continue to see it.
Yeah. With regards to the work on the airport and work on the runway, they're saying that will cost the economy in Cork hundreds of millions of euro in lost commerce, because of the closure of the runway. And then others are suggesting that it was penny pinching by the Dublin Airport Authority to close it, that they could have kept it open. They could have even done it at night. They could have brought in lighting and everything. Do you think that this plan with regards to the runway work is good with regarding timing? When we come out of a pandemic, and you would think that maybe September, October, the airport would be booming. I mean, do you think the timing is right?
I think the timing is awful. I think maybe back 3-4 months ago, where this was kind of, petered with, you'd probably say, yeah, look, at that time there was probably no chance of any international travel. Now we see the vaccines are rolling out. The UK are really achieving a lot in terms of their vaccine.
They're flying again. Yeah, they're actually going on holidays.
And the US. So our main parts of the world we fly to, and I have a lot of money coming out of this country to and from is the US and the UK. Now these two regions are really powering forward their vaccine systems. Now it's looking like that there will be a slight recovery in travel, or relaxation of travel maybe in July and August. Now for Cork Airport, that's not going to be much good.
No, it's kind of like, for years when, we have the long summers and nothing gets done, and then the first week when the kids are back to school, they start digging up the roads. It's kind of like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's bad timing. And look, the work has to be done, and whether you do it over 3 months or the other option is to do it over maybe 12 months. But the restrictions then on airlines operating in and out of Cork Airport are extended for a longer period of time. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. The work has to be done. It's being done now, and I don't think there's anything that's going to stop it being done. The only worry about it or concern about it is it overrunning. And if it overruns and hits our Christmas period and prevents us from flying out of Cork, well then there's a possibility that we will be like, Aer Lingus will be like Ryanair and not return back till maybe, April next year.
And is there a potential that they may not come back till April?
There's a big potential if the works overruns, for sure.
They'll just scrap any plans for Christmas, and the New Year will be quiet, and they'll just decide to go back in the spring again. Because Ryanair can be precarious with their decisions at the best of time. We usedn't expect that of Aer Lingus, but the worry now is that Aer Lingus will decide just to say, we'll forget about Cork and forget about Shannon, we'll just concentrate on Dublin.
Well, that is the plan. That is the plan, and it's our CEO has publicly come out and said that the recovery will be initially centric around Dublin as a hub, and they'll recover Dublin and then worry about what's around Dublin after that. Now, again, this goes back to the argument when you look at what happened in Shannon. Will this happen? Our worries, will this happen to Cork? Now, a base in Cork Airport, having airlines based in Cork Airport is essential to the region, because for business particularly, and I'll give you an example. if you're a businessman or woman heading to London or Amsterdam or Paris for a business meeting, you would leave first thing in the morning. Now, you can leave first thing in the morning, any morning, Monday to Friday, out of Cork and be disembarking an airplane before 9 o'clock in Heathrow.
Yeah.
You jump on a train and you're into central London, into an office before 10 o'clock, and you do your business. You can then arrive back at the airport and you can jump on a plane at 2 o'clock and come home. There's your day's work done.
Amazing.
So that's essentially, and you can also leave Cork Airport at 6 o'clock in the morning and be on your way to anywhere in the world, via Amsterdam. And you can even go, if you leave 7:30 in the morning in the good times out of London Heathrow, you can be on a flight out of Heathrow at about 12 o'clock, 12:30, to Perth, Australia. So the connectivity that the base provides and the business and the tourism that it provides, the region, like there's 12,000 jobs connected to Cork Airport from around the Cork region, either indirectly or directly.
So redundancies could be much higher than the potential hundreds. In fact, it could be 500, 600 within aviation, perhaps, and those that work in Cork Airport, and then many more with ancillary businesses.
Well, you look at B&Bs, hotels, restaurants, we bring in, I could go to work in the morning and do a double London pattern in the morning, and we could carry up to 600 people on that shift. So we're bringing in, 600 people into the area, and the same that evening. So
every day.
Every day. It's astonishing the amount of people that we bring in and out of this country. And if you go to Dublin and you look at flights going to the US we were bringing in, thousands of people a day, spending money, keeping businesses going, encouraging foreign direct investment. And we're looking now at, after all this time, and I've spoke to you before about this, and I said, we can't have this conversation again the last time we spoke. And here we are again, because government are not listening.
But they're caught in the headlights of a pandemic, aren't they, and keeping people safe?
They are, but you know what? There's a risk associated with travel, Neil, and we have been. I'm actually blue in the face from saying it. Like there are technologies out there and systems out there that you can mitigate that risk. We're not going to eliminate the virus. There is nothing in the world that can actually eliminate this virus overnight. We're going to have to live with this virus and many other viruses to come. But what we can do is we can use the technology and systems that are available to us to mitigate that risk.
That's what Willie Walsh is saying. He's your former boss, isn't he?
Yeah.
He said that Ireland had some of the strictest COVID measures in Europe, and Ireland is at risk of falling behind other economies. He's saying just pick it up, guys, isn't he? Get moving.
And if there's anyone that knows what they're talking about, it's that gentleman.
Yeah.
And government need to listen. I'm blue in the face from saying it. Even yesterday, we heard Martin saying that he supported the aviation industry. That could not be further from the truth. Even yesterday, the announcement for the job losses in Cork, there are no systems available to those people. These people are going to be let go now without pay in September. The kids are going to be going back to school. The financial stress in the family is going to increase. It's awful for these people. And
60 ground staff, 138 cabin crew laid off until at least November with no wages and no support.
Nearly 200 families, Neil, in the Cork area in September will have kids going back to school, and their parents' income is going to be drastically affected. And there is no scheme, no government scheme available for them. They don't know what they're entitled to. They can't get claim the pup because it's not. As I said, this was announced because of the runway closure.
But imagine that some people in Cork Airport or within Aer Lingus are married to people within Aer Lingus, aren't they?
Yes, there is. Yeah, many. Yeah, there's a great example. I mean, your total income is reduced. Like my own income is down up to 70%. That's an awful lot, and that's the reality, and we just have to deal with that. But again, the main problem here is Cork Airport going to be ready for us in November? And if it's not, what happens then?
It's on a knife edge, my friend. It's on a knife edge.
It is.
A text here before I let you go. I'm cabin crew based in Cork. It's very concerning. No pay from the company, no payment scheme set up as of yet for cabin crew from government. If this continues into Christmas and January, where does this leave us all? Will there be even a base in Cork to go back to? We should have been compensated, not left with no money at all and no future. That kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
It does, and I mean, you have to look at Aer Lingus' point of view as well. They have been forced into this because of lack of support, government support. I believe that Aer Lingus don't really want to do this because they've hung on. We're the last airline in there, and we've hung on. It's 14 months now, Neil, and we've hung on. We haven't let anyone go. We're trying our best. The staff have taken huge pay cuts to try and help us survive this. And now it's May, we're going into the summer, a second consecutive summer with no revenue. Businesses can't. You talk about 360 million of a loss last year. Ryanair, 800 million. What kind of business do you know that can withstand losses like that year after year? It's impossible without support. And this is a temporary problem, but the problem with this problem is, if we don't get support, it's going to be a long-term problem, and it's going to be a long-term problem to 140,000 jobs in Ireland associated with aviation, and 12,000 of those within Cork.
And we are in this situation very finally, right? Because of the resurfacing of a runway. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
The threat now to the Cork base is because of this runway. Yeah, bizarre. Correct.
Kieran, thank you so much for the update. Do stay in touch and I'll do likewise, all right?
Thank you. Cheers, Neil.
Cheers for now. Kieran O'Regan, Cork Aer Lingus pilot.
Neil Prendeville, the voice of Cork. Weekdays 9 to 12. Cork's Red FM. Red FM.